Okay, it looks like we are live. Let me take this off. All right, everybody, we should be live. It is 5 o'clock, and my name is Yvonne, and you have joined the Jelly Roll Club. So today I'm going to take a deviation from my normal, which is sewing, and I'm going to show you how to make a no-sew fabric postcard. And so if you didn't watch the other fabric postcards, I'm going to give you a quick recap, and then I'm going to share this quick project with you. All right, so first let me share my desktop so that you know where to find stuff. So let me go there. Please let me know if you can hear me, so you can just drop something in the chat if you can hear my voice, and that would be super helpful. All right, so let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my desktop with you. All right, so if you go to my website, www.jellyrollclub.com, then what you're going to see across one of the tabs across the top, if you have a computer, if you have an iPad or a small phone, you're going to probably see the menu on the left. But here you are, it says quick and easy gifts, and then when you scroll down, there's several projects that we've already done. There's a tortilla keeper from last year. There's the easiest scrap quilt ever. There's another scrap quilt project. There's a holiday gnome pillow. I do leave my projects up for you guys to do later. If you miss any, there's a groovy little wallet, tiny little stockings, snowman ornaments, and other things. But if you scroll down to the bottom, it says Snow Day Postcard Episode 1. So I showed you how to make a little postcard. And then I showed you how to make a birthday postcard. So there was a handout. And so here we are today, and we're Fabric Postcard Episode 2. And this one is a no-sew postcard. So that's what we're going to get started with today. All right, if you guys can hear me, just let me know in the chat. All right, so let me show you what I've got. So I'm going to show you both of my cameras. So today, you guys should have pulled down the little handouts that look like this. So you have a little fabric postcard 1, 2, and 3. And just so you can see, I bought a stack of postcards that are like this, just standard postcards. They have these lines, and then you can make them like this. This is the birthday postcard. This is the little snow day postcard, and these are quilted first, and then they're fused or attached onto the postcard, and then I zigzag around the edges. I leave the batting just a tiny bit short of the edge, and then I zigzag it all the way around, and that gives me my postcards. Now I could drop this in the mail just like this, or if you have a Walmart handy or a store, you can get greeting card envelopes, and these are A7 size, and they are just big enough for these postcards. So if you make these postcards, you can slip them into standard greeting card envelopes like this, and they fit nicely in there. If you want to make them a little bit bigger, then you can just mail them like this so that your cute little postcards don't get dirty. This is if you're sewing yours, and so this one is sewn, but the one I'm going to make today involves no sewing whatsoever. All right, so let me show you the supplies you're going to need. You're going to need a template. For me, I'm just going to use this as a template. You're going to need some kind of a pattern, a stack of scraps. I have this piece from I cut off from an old block I was making, a bag of just random jelly roll pieces, and even a few little tiny scraps that I save sometimes in a Ziploc bag. And so that's what I'm going to use today. I'm also going to use parchment paper, because we don't want stuff sticking to everything. So these are just pre-cut sheets of regular parchment paper like you would put on a baking tray. I'm going to be using a little teeny tiny clover iron for some of my little pieces, but you don't have to. I'm going to be using something called Heat and Bond Ultra Hold, and it specifically says no sew right on there. So this is the adhesive that I'm going to use today. It's 1 yard, and it's about $3 or $4 for a yard, and this is plenty for what I'm going to do. But it's called Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to press. I need 2 pieces of fabric. So maybe this is big enough, I'm not sure. Nope, not quite big enough. So I'm going to be using it this way for my background. And then you're gonna get another scrap, it doesn't matter what size. I had a leftover pocket, I think. Yeah, so this is a leftover pocket from another project, and that's gonna be big enough for what I need. And so I'm gonna use this for the back side. If you don't wanna use something this light, you can use something darker. So you can just use something like this. Now this fabric is washed and dried and pressed, so it doesn't have a bunch of starch or sizing. And you don't want that because this glue will not stick long term if you have a bunch of starch and sizing. All right, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna take this, and this was pressed to the side, so I'm gonna press that open because I want that to be as flat as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and just iron that super flat. If you don't have one of these little irons, just use a regular iron. I like this for seams. If you have a project that requires little teeny tiny open seams, this is a great little project. All right, and so you're just going to take that and open that up just like that. And once I have that open, I'm probably going to give her a nice hard press with my regular iron, just because I want that to be as flat as can be. All right, so I'm going to take my fingernails, and yet again, I'm going to go back through here. And this is just because I want that seam to be stone stick flat. Can you guys hear me? It says my microphone is muffled. All right, I'm turning up my microphone. Is that better? Here, let me take this. Can you guys hear me? Let me take this off my microphone. Is that better? Can you guys hear me now? All right, so now I'm going to press this, and it looks like we're ready to go. Okay, so now that I've got that pressed stone stick flat, somebody said the sound is fuzzy. How about now? Is the sound better? Okay, so now that I have that and it's perfectly flat, can you guys see that? Now that that's perfectly flat, now I'm ready to move on to my next part. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take and I'm going to draw a line. This line will go away, so it doesn't matter how I do this. And I'm just going to line this up. This is my postcard template. And I'm going to be cutting this line off, so it doesn't matter if it's done with a regular pen. Okay, so now that I have that, I know where I'm going to have my template, and I'm going to cut this a little bit wider. So I just need a tiny bit wider than 4 inches by 6 inches, and that's just to make sure that when I fuse this together, it's going to be sticky very well to itself. So these are more scraps that go in the scrap bin, and I can move that out of the way. Now I'm going to need something for the back. I think I'm going to use this pink. I like this pink here. So again, this is just a little bit wider than what I need. And I'm just going to trim this off. Okay. Alrighty, so now that I have this, I'm just going to give myself about a 1/2 inch outside of the line because that's how much bigger I'm going to be making my postcard background. And just like that, I have 2 pieces. Let me move my microphone. Is that better if I move my microphone over? Can you guys hear me now? Maybe my microphone is too close. What do you guys think now? Is that better? I'm sorry about my microphones. Every time that there's a Windows update, my microphones go haywire on my computer. How does that sound? If you are listening and you want to help me out, will you please tell me if that is better? I moved the microphone a little bit further away. Okay. All right, so now that I have this, and I have the front and the back. Oh, good, good. So now that I have the front and the back, then I'm going to take some of this Ultra Hold, some of this super strong Ultra Hold, and I'm going to make sure that I have two pieces, one for the front and one for the back. And so it's going to be two of them, and I'm going to make it bigger than what I need. So I'm just going to kind of draw the line, and the same thing I did before. I'm just going to cut pieces that are bigger than what I'm going to need, okay? All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to move it out of the way. Here, let me try moving my microphone. Oops. Sorry, guys. Let me move it up here on top in front of me. All right. So now that I have this, I'm going to take, and these need to go on the backs of both of these. And so I just need to make sure that I have just enough, but not too much. And so I'm going to trim some of this off, because what I don't want is for this to hang further out than my little piece of fabric. Okay, so just like this, and that should cover the entire back. And then I'm going to go ahead and just give it a little press. And so I'm just going to give it a tiny press, not a lot, with this just to kind of hold it in place, because I want it to stick, but not completely, not yet, because these are going to end up getting stuck together. All right, so let me go ahead and just take this one and do the same thing. I just need to make sure that this goes all the way out to the edges. And so I'm going to go ahead and take my iron, and I'm going to make sure that this is sticking, especially in the seam. And then this is pushing outward. So I don't want any bubbles in here. So I'm pushing that out. Okay. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and lay a piece of parchment paper. And remember, don't get all these pieces confused. You don't want to confuse your glue and your parchment paper and all your things. I'm going to lay a piece of parchment paper down, because what I don't want is for anything to stick to my pressing surface. And I'm going to go ahead and give it one press from the back side and then one press from the other side. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to start on one side, and I'm going to move across just like that. It's about 15 seconds to adhere that completely. And get that glue nice and strong on there. And then about 15 seconds to get this on there as well. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to let this cool down. And this has some sticky, so I'm going to want to fold that, because I don't want to use that again. I'm going to leave the sticky to the inside. Now this is important, let it dry flat. As it cools, it'll hold that shape, so you want it to be nice and flat. Okay, so there we have it. And so now that that's drying like that, flat, it's cooling down, I can go ahead and trim this. And so I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to use a rotary cutter just because I want my edges to be nice and straight. And so both of these, I'm going to lay them together, and I'm going to make sure that I have the right size, which I do, and I'm going to cut them 4 by 6. I might even make them a little bit wider since I don't have to have cardstock in these. So I'm going to make sure these are 4 by 6. So I'm just going to trim on 2 sides. Just like this. Make sure that edge is nice and even. I'm going to trim this side, lining up carefully. I'm going to go ahead and do this last side. And I'm going to leave myself a little tiny bit of wiggle room because I'm going to come back, and after I fuse both of these together, I'm going to want to trim it again. And so this is just getting them as close as I can to the template as possible. Okay. So this one's looking nice and flat. I like how that looks. I'm going to trim all the excess because I don't want all this glue all over the place. And I have a nice sharp blade on my rotary cutter, so make sure you have a nice sharp blade for this project. Since you're not sewing or serging the edges, then you don't want those to unravel. Anytime you're using fusible, it works best with fabric that's been laundered that has no starch or sizing in it, because all of that kind of stuff causes the glue to come undone. All right. So there I have it. I have the bottom of my little postcard that I'm going to use and the back. Now I can go ahead and I'm going to leave it just like this, and I'm going to build my butterfly. And again, I'm going to be using no sew method. So I'm going to use for my butterfly, I've already drawn a little butterfly on here. I'm going to pull him off. And so, hang on. Where did I put my little baby butterfly? Here he is. I've already drawn the butterfly. And I'm going to be making another little snowman as well. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find a little jelly roll scrap. And all of these pieces will fit inside your jelly roll scraps. So anytime I do a design, I'm always thinking, what jelly roll scraps do I have? Because these all fit. And so none of these pieces are wider than 2.5 inches. I love sewing, but if you're traveling, this is a great little project. If you're staying in a hotel room like I had to stay in for a few days, you can actually just use the iron in the hotel and you can take some of the stuff with you and you can do that. So if you're going on holiday, this is a great little project that you can take with you. All right, now that I have my little butterfly, I have to decide which of these jelly roll scraps I want. I think I'm going to make this little butterfly maybe, if I have maybe something pinky in here. I don't know, maybe my butterfly can be pink. I think I'm going to make him have these little floral wings. I like this little scrap here. And I can fit both of those wings on this. This scrap is 4.5 inches. And so I usually save scraps that are 4.5 inches because those are great for potato chip blocks. For those of you who know what potato chip blocks are, they're great for that. Maybe, I don't know, what color do you guys think? This is the hardest thing about using scraps is what color am I going to use? Should I use a red floral or should I use a yellow? Tell me what you guys think. Maybe this yellow butterfly. And then this could be his little body. What do you guys think? The little red one or the little yellow one? I think I'm going to use the hardest part of my day is picking out what color I'm going to use. All right, I think I'm going to stick with my initial choice, which was red. And I think for his little body, I'm going to use this kind of goldy color. So that's what I'm going to do for my little butterfly. And so I'm going to go ahead and press both of those wings onto the back. If you have too much, just trim that off because you don't want a bunch of excess on there. And it doesn't matter how they go on there as long as it's all the way to the edge. And make sure that you press for at least 15 seconds. And you're going to trim the other side and lay it down like this. And so if you have those potato chip scraps left over that are 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches, this little butterfly fits right on there. All right. And so we have a set of wings. Now I need to figure out his little body. I think this little gold color is going to be cute. I like that. So his body will be a little bit solid. That way when we draw his antenna on there. And we're going to be using a little fabric marker. So the Pigma microns that you use to draw your quilt labels will work just fine. All right, so I have my little butterfly, just like this. I'm going to take and I'm going to trim him out, his little wings. And remember, this is no sew, so you do not have to sew this at all. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this. And I'm going to leave these two wings attached. Do not draw them as two separate wings. Just leave them attached. It just makes your life easier. So there are my two little wings for my butterfly, and then this is going to be his little body. All right. Okay, can you guys see that? All right. This head's a little wobbly when I drew it, so now I need to fix it. All right, so now that I have his little body, I'm going to go ahead and put him on here. I'm going to do the same thing we always do. You just pull this off. And you're going to make a cute little fun butterfly. You're not going to have that edge to worry about stitching down because this one is not going to be sewn together. And so we're going to go ahead and put this little wing here. And this is how he's going to fly. And I'm going to put his wing here. Now I haven't removed his back paper. I'm just going to leave him just like this. Just like that. I'm going to put his little wings underneath his body. And I like how they look. I may bring this one down a little bit and leave his head kind of peeking out. I just need enough room to put his little antenna on there and his little face. And so now that I have it, I'm going to take this little thing right here and I'm going to iron all of that in place before I remove the back paper. So that paper is gone there, that paper is gone there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to anchor this. Let me see if I'm going to flip his, I may flip his wings. If you don't like the way his wings look, just flip them around. I think I want them this way. Even though the wings in the drawing go the other direction, I like how they look this way. So I think I'm going to leave the wings. Okay, so now that I have him, I'm going to go ahead and overlap all of his pieces, and I'm going to press with my little iron just to get it all on those edges. And these little irons get really hot, so watch your fingers. And so now that I have him anchored, anytime I do a lot of detailed applique, I pull out that little thing, and it helps me to get everything anchored so it doesn't slide around. All right, so now that I have him, I can go ahead and take my micron. You can use your micron, and this is permanent, or you can use a permanent fabric marker. And you can put his little details on him if you want his little wings to have this little outline. You can do a little outline on his wings like this. And that just gives it a little bit of that little outline like you do when you're drawing. Just like that. You can do this in different colors if you don't want to do it in black. I think black is just the easiest for me. And I'm going to do it this way. And now I'm going to do his little face. I'm going to make him smile, and I'm going to make his little antenna curl this way and his little antenna curl that way. So now I have my little antenna, I have my little guy, and I'm just going to kind of bring a little bit more just along the edge of that fabric marker. And I think this is going to be my little guy. And I'm going to put little lines on him. If you notice in the drawing, he had little lines. And so his little body looks like sort of like a bumblebee, I guess. But he's going to have little lines. And that's how I'm going to do mine. So now that I have this, now I'm ready to put both of these together. And if you notice, these are almost the same size, not quite. One is a tiny bit bigger, and that's what I want. Now, if I wanted to, I could put this cardstock in between and trim it smaller by 1/4 of an inch and then fuse them on both sides like this, like a sandwich, if I wanted one that was really stiff. So if I wanted to do that, I really could. But I don't need it to be that stiff. If you want to, you can put plain construction paper of any type. So if you have like construction paper like this, you could actually take a piece of this construction paper and fuse it inside there. And so I might do that just to give that a little bit more structure. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to draw this right here. I'm going to cut that with my scissors. And then I'm just going to cut that right there. And then I'm going to remove like 1/4 of an inch from that edge. And so I'm going to be using just a regular rotary cutter. I have one that I use for paper. And then I'm going to take about 1/4 of an inch off of all of those sides. So I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch off of this side and 1/4 of an inch off the other side. And what that'll do is it'll ensure that my little postcard is stuck together. So there's a 1/4 of an inch off of this side. And then let me just make sure that it's the correct size. Let me see. There it is. And that's what I want. And so now that I have it, and this is going to be kind of like the structure, now I can move all of this stuff and assemble my postcard. Like I said, this is a great little project if you don't want to drag a sewing machine, but you want to make something cute with your scraps. This is what you're going to do. So this is going to go on the inside, and it should have a border all the way around, and that one does. I might even trim a tiny bit more, and that's just to give it structure. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to remove this paper off of the back of all of these, and I'm going to put it together. It should be glossy, and you can feel this one. It almost feels like plastic. It's super thick. All right. Now, the only tip I'm going to give you about this is you're going to want to make sure that whatever you do with this, that you're going to want to use fabrics that, like I said, are pre-washed. And so now I'm going to stick it in here just like this. And see how that's sticking out? I don't want that to stick out. So I'm going to trim that a tiny bit because I don't want glue getting all over my ironing surface. So I'm going to trim that off. I'm going to slide that over. It looks pretty good. It's kind of sticking to itself a little bit. And so I'm going to use my fingers to slide it over, and that looks pretty good. So now I have this piece of parchment paper. Remember how it was sticky inside? And I folded it. I'm going to take and I'm going to fold it in half. And now I'm going to make like a sandwich. And I'm going to press this carefully on both sides. And so I'm going to take my I can take my woolly mat, it doesn't matter what, but just make sure that you're pressing this on both sides really, really well. And you're not going to want to move that, so you're going to want to just hold that. So these are little fabric ones, and so now what we have is a double-sided fusible because we made our own. And so you don't even have to sew. You know, there are some days you don't feel like pulling out your sewing machine, you're not in the mood to sew anything, but you have all those cute little scraps left over. This is a great little scrap project. And so I'm just going to take, and that little tiny piece of construction paper, it's acid free, I put it in the middle, and what that's going to do is that's going to give it a little bit of structure so it's more like a stiff little postcard, and I think this is going to be so cute. All right, so let me pull this out. And so now this is drying, or cooling, and it's going to end up being stiff. And so it has that little cardboard in there. So it's literally a little cardboard postcard. Look at how cute that is. If you want to, you can put a little note on here if you love somebody. You can put a little note like, hey, love bug. I call my granddaughter that. So I could put just like this, you could put a little note. And you could put, hey there, love bug, just like that. I like writing in cursive. This is a cute little love bug for my love bug of a granddaughter. And I can draw a little heart right there. And so I could say, hey there, love bug, and I could draw a few more little hearts. You can do whatever you want with these. Like I said, a little piece of scrap. And then once they cool, this is nice and firm. And now all I have to do is trim around the edges, because I want to make sure that there's no exposed edges that are going to come apart. And just like that, lickety split, you're going to be making little fabric postcards for people you love. And I think this is super cute. And so now I can just go ahead and give it a little trim to make sure all of these edges are even. I'm just going to sliver trim through all of the layers. Just like this. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. If you have grandchildren or children or friends, if you want to do something for Galentine's Day, you have an old high school friend that you haven't seen in forever and you want to send them a little pick-me-upper. The winter is a great time to make these little things. But you can make the old designs that I put in there, the birthday one. And there it is, friends. Look at that cute little postcard. If you wanted to, you could write on the back of this with your Micron Pigma pen. It is permanent, so if you want to write on the back of it, either with a fabric marker, you could do that. And these usually don't bleed, or your Micron Pigma pen. So if you wanted to do that, you're ready to go. And that's it, my friends. Just like that, you can make yourself a little fabric postcard. All right. So I hope you like this. Please give it a thumbs up. This is what the postcard looks like. Hey there, love bug. You're going to send that to somebody. You can stick it in a regular envelope, just like this. Those slip right in there, and then you can add those Betty White stamps, and you can send that to somebody. You can attach a note, and then you're ready to go. All right, friends, there are several designs on my website if you want. So let me just show you really quick before we sign off. I have another live stream that starts at 6, and so let me just show you what that looks like. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And so if you go to my website, there is a birthday postcard that looks like this. That's the one you saw. I made it the other direction, so you can print that out. And there is also a snowy day postcard, and so the handout looks like this, and those are the ones that I made. So if you want to make some for your friends, you go ahead and do that. But thank you for joining me. I appreciate you guys, and I will see some of you guys at 6 for that right there. Can you guys see it on the back? My favorite things. I'll see you shortly. All right, everybody. Have a good one. Thank you.